Connor's Crazy Countdown.
Hi everybody, hello fellow Elfikins. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not usually on camera. Santa tends to not let us out of the workshop much. Anyways, this is Connor's Crazy Countdown, and he's counting down his favorite Christmas movies. I love movies. I wish I was doing the countdown. Don't really know why I'm not, but I'm gonna hand you over to Connor now, so you can do the countdown. Hope you enjoy. And I've gotta go. Santa's being really mean recently. Bye. See you there. Santa, no.
Where have you been, Mr. Elf? Come here right now.
No.
Hello everybody, welcome to another Connor's Crazy Countdown, or in this case a Connor's Christmas Countdown. So we've already had a Connor's Christmas Countdown, Crazy Countdown for my favourite Christmas songs, but this is my favourite Christmas films, and this is kind of different because I'm speaking and not got a video, apart from the video you saw with my friend Elfie there. Thank you, Elfie. But anyways, I'm going to get on with it. So yet again, I have 25, just like with the videos. So 25, and this time there's the films. So my first one, number 25, is Jingle All The Way. Now, I've only seen this film maybe about 3 times, and it's my favourite films, right? So it's basically not my favourite films in a sense. It's my Christmas films that I've seen. So it's from my least favourite to my favourite. So my least favourite Christmas film that I've seen is Jingle All The Way. And although it's got Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, it's not that good a film. Basically, it's a dad and his neighbour who's played by the recent sad to pass. I can't speak. It's about this dad who wants to give his son a good Christmas, and his son is obsessed with... Right, so Arnold Schwarzenegger wants to make things up with his son, and he promises to get his son the hottest toy. So you know how that basically is at Christmas times, you're always promising this thing, and the guy's name is Turbo Man. So Turbo Man is this guy, and I think that Arnold Schwarzenegger goes through a lot of different shops and it's sold out, or it's not in stock, or things like that. And he's also met by another guy in it, Sinbad. Yeah, the guy who plays... so Sinbad's the actor who plays something or other. I don't really know what the guy's name is, but he keeps meeting up with this guy, and eventually they end up in a big fight at the end. And guess what? Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't get the toy, but there's something quite interesting that happens, and that's maybe the best bit about the film. Or, of course, the best bit about the film, in my opinion, is when Arnold Schwarzenegger says one of his best sayings, and one of his sayings that he's remembered for, "Put the cookie down."
Put that cookie down!
But other than that, it's not really that good a film. It's an okay film, and I would probably watch it again. It came out a year after I was born, actually, amazingly enough. But anyways, on to number 24 then. Now, number 24 is a bit better than the last one, but, well, maybe not. It's another film that's got quite a few big actors in it, but it's... the first 2 films of this were good, and they made sense. The third film is a bit far stretching. It's not really all that good, if you think about it. I don't know how to put it. It's not the best. It really isn't the best. So basically, the film I'm talking about is the Santa Claus 3, the Escape Clause. And in this film, there is the Santa Claus. So from the first 2 films, the Santa Claus was Tim Allen, and he did a good job. In the third film, same again, Tim Allen, but he's joined by Martin Short, who usually is a good actor, who usually is funny, but in this case he's a bit trying too hard, if you think about it. But in this film, Santa Claus, aka Tim Allen or Scott Calvin, he's inviting his in-laws to the North Pole, which makes for something quite interesting. But he's also, for some reason, got a niece, and he's got a lot of other things, and it just becomes strange. Also, the main guy from the other 2 films, his main elf, is no longer in this, which is very sad. And his son, Charlie Calvin, or Charlie, is growing up, and he's not the same. So nothing's really the same. That seems to be the case with a lot of Free films, because if you saw The Mummy Free, it's a different actress who plays the wife, and everything's just different. So third films tend to be different, and in this case, this film for me is far too different.
Yeah, and?
So anyways, the next film that is on my list, and it is Santa Claus 2. So like I said with the third one was far stretching. This one, not too much. This one actually was relevant in a sense. And good to know that the main elf is still in this. What's his name again? I can't remember. Bernard the elf, right? There we go, Bernard. Okay, so Bernard is still in it at this point. He's not growing up and become an adult and whatever else. But in this film, he has to get a wife. So the whole premise of this is he has to get a wife, but he falls for Charlie's headmistress, and not only that, but because he's going to look for a wife, so he's going back to the main land as it is, not the North Pole, he is replaced by a robot version of himself. That's kind of funny, because there's a lot of mistakes in that, but there's funny bits to this film, a lot more than the third film, and this one is a bit more enjoyable, a lot more to it, so I'd say it's an okay watch. Definitely check it out.
Now that we all have an understanding, have a joyous and Merry Christmas.
Right, number 22 then. Now, number 22 is a film I think I've only seen once, or maybe even twice. And it's Tim Allen again, amazingly enough, but it's maybe not as good as the Santa Claus versions of Tim Allen. In this one is called Christmas with the Kranks. And basically, their daughter goes away. I can't remember, was it she either went on holiday or she went to uni or something, and they wanted to spend Christmas with her. Unfortunately, they took this as, what was it? They because they couldn't spend Christmas with her, they couldn't spend Christmas at all. So they decided they were not going to do Christmas at all. And basically, they took away their tree, they didn't put any decorations up, they didn't want anything to do with it. So they planned to not do anything. There was a lot of funny scenes in this. I especially liked when Tim Allen got Botox, or what's his character's name? Hold on, Luther, right? Luther. I especially liked when Luther got Botox. That was pretty funny. But the most interesting part about this film, I think, was the fact that their daughter eventually said, I am coming back to spend Christmas with you. So they had to make everything get better, and that's when things got really interesting, really fun, and a lot of fun. And there's another big actor in this film. Dan Aykroyd was in this film, and of course Jamie Lee Curtis. So it was a good film. The only reason it's at 22 is because there's a lot more good films out there. So let's get on with the list.
Luther and I are fine. Everything is fine, and everything is completely normal.
Number 21. Number 21 is a cult classic. Number 21 is seen as biblical to a lot of people. Number 21 is a lot of people's favourite films, in a sense. People love this film. People adore this film. People go out their way to get this film, see this film, whatever this film. Me, I'm not that big a fan of this film. It's an okay film. I can watch this film and get along with it. But there's a lot of little snags in this film that get riled up me. I do not like the children in this film singing their Halloween songs. If you haven't guessed already, it's The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is overdone. I am sick of this film in a sense, but I can still watch it, right? Just now I can still watch it. But if I hear the songs in it getting played to death and that, and it's like, I'm such a sad pumpkin Jack the Pumpkin King, and what? Oh, but the kids' song, I think the kids, when they sing the Halloween song and they go and they trick or treat at the boogeyman, I hate that part of the film. I resent that part of the film. The boogeyman is scary enough, yeah, he's fine. Oh, but even Santa Claus looks a little bit weird. I'm not a big fan. I mean, Tim Burton is a mastermind behind creating scary things and interesting things, but it's kind of apparent that he might have started with the Halloween part to this film, because there's a lot more done for the Halloween bit. The Christmas town is like what do you say? It's like it's not even a town. It's basically a house with 3 other houses round it, or whatever it is. It's terrible. The Santa looks terrifying. I do not like the Santa, but I would say, honestly, this is more of a Halloween film than a Christmas film, because if you think about it, the Halloween people go to the Christmas town. The Christmas people do not go to the Halloween town, apart from Santa Claus. So it's more or less a Halloween town, right? But a Halloween film. But it is a Christmas film as well, so that's why it's in this list. But it's not my favourite. Definitely it's not. I'm kind of sick of it, so I'm going to be moving on quickly.
Eureka! This year, Christmas will be ours!
On to the next film then. Now, the next film is something I've not seen that recently. It's not something I've seen probably in the last 10 years, or maybe even longer than that. But it's something that I enjoyed a lot as a kid. And I loved it because they did the Christmas Carol well. And the film I'm talking about is Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. Now, they did many scenes in this, like they've done with many of their other films, but this was done well in one particular bit. When they did the Christmas Carol done through Mickey's eyes and done in that way was perfection. They got Scrooge McDuck to play Scrooge. I mean, hello, could you get any more perfect than that? They had Mickey playing Bob Cratchit. Everything was perfection. I loved every bit of it. That I could watch to death. I could watch it over and over and over again and still enjoy it. There was a few other things that they did in Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. They did a few other scenes and it was funny and interesting. There's no complaints about this. It's obviously aged a bit for me. Like, it's not as entertaining as it once was when I was a kid, but it's still entertaining. I still enjoy seeing I would still enjoy seeing the Christmas Carol if Mickey did it, so I like it. The second one I'm not even going to talk about. I've never seen it. I've seen a review of it and it was horrendous, but the first one, masterpiece. Wonderful masterpiece, and I hope you check it out. But anyways, on to the next one.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
So number 19. Now, number 19 I've kind of talked about, sort of, and it's number 1 of the 3 in the collection. That's right, it's the Santa Claus. So, the Santa Claus, there's something about this film that I grew up with this film in a sense. This film, on all the videos I used to have, there was always an advert about it. It was always showing this advert of the Santa Claus, and I was like, it was stuck in my head, the adverts. I loved it. It was like, there was one bit in it, it's the bit when he was in the sleigh and he was going, ho ho ho. That stuck in my head. I don't know why the adverts have stuck in my head more than the film, but the film was lovely. I loved the film. It was funny. Tim Allen, when he was, I was about to say human. I mean, he's still human. Tim Allen, before he was Santa Claus, like trying to cover up that he was Santa Claus, that was hilarious. Especially when he was in the board meeting and he was really fat and he was growing facial hair or something like that, and everybody was staring at him like, God, Scott, have you put on some weight? It's really funny. I like that bit. And then there was bits where he was sitting in the park and then children came up to him and they were asking him, are you Santa? Or they would just come up to him and ask him something, not even ask him if he was Santa. It was brilliant. So this film, there are a few weird things to it, but mainly this film is a good film. I still love this film. I own this film. I love it that much. It's that good. The reason it's at 19 is because the rest of these films, wonderful.
Shut your eyes. No!
So, with that then, on to number 18. Now, number 18, you might be thinking, like, surely Santa Claus should be in front of this, because I've only seen this film maybe twice, but I love this film. So number 18 is Four Christmases. Not only do you have Vince Vaughn, but You have Reese Witherspoon. You have hundreds of other great actresses and actors in this film. It's hilarious. So basically, with this film, for Christmases, Vince Vaughn, who is Brad in this film, and Kate, Reese Witherspoon, they must spend their Christmas day with their families, and they don't like doing that because there's 4 different families. Now, I can't relate to this because I have a lot of different families because of my siblings, but I do not have a lot of different families because of my parents. So basically their parents are separated. I think both their parents were separated, I can't remember, but Vince Vaughn's parents, or Brad's parents, were both separated, so that's 2 sets, and then Reese Witherspoon, Kate's parents were separated too. And it was interesting, it was funny, because they did not like spending time with their family, and here they were forced to spend time with their family because their planes were cancelled. It was epic. So I will definitely be watching this film sometime before Christmas or around Christmas, but hopefully I can convince some of you to watch it too. It's awesome, and I hope it gets more attention, because I think it's only got, how much? It's got 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not that good. It needs more attention. It's a good film.
Get away from me. I'm sorry, I love you. You gotta get out of here. I can't breathe. I wouldn't do it too!
On to the next one. And the next one, number 17, is another film I've not seen that much recently, but when I was younger, it was fantastic. I don't even think it was that good, to be honest. When I was younger, it was like gold. It was like the best thing I'd ever seen. But I think if I saw it more today, I'd be like, nah, it's not that good. Anyways, the film I'm talking about is Flintstones Christmas Carol. Now, I didn't watch the Flintstones that much when I was younger. It was kind of past my time, or before my time even. But the Flintstones Christmas Carol, I used to own it on DVD. Not DVD, video. That was before DVDs. I'm very modern now, aren't I? But it was wonderful. Not only did you have Fred Flintstone playing Scrooge, that you had so many other weird different things. You know what? I actually think this might be on YouTube to watch, so it's not that hard to come across. But it wasn't even the fact that Fred was playing Scrooge. He was playing himself playing Scrooge, if that makes any sense. They were putting on a show. Like, what? So Fred Flintstone had to come to grips with being a Scrooge at Christmas, and then he had to play a character of Scrooge at Christmas. I know it sounds very confusing, but it's not confusing when you say it. Basically, the Flintstones, so Fred and Barney and a few others, I think Wilma was in it too, a few of them, right, they had to play the characters of the Christmas Carol. So they had to play Bob Cratchit, they had to play Scrooge, they had to play Scrooge's girlfriend and wife or whatever else. They had to play these characters in a play, and the play, so many things go wrong at the play or during the playing of the play. So Fred, in a sense, has to come to sense with this, and he has to put his mind into what's real life and what's not real life, and it ends pretty nicely, but so many bad things happen throughout this film. It's incredible. I love seeing this, and I definitely will be seeing it again. I hope a few of you might be seeing it too.
This is one Christmas Eve Fred will never forget.
Anyways, now that I'm obsessed with that film, on to the next film, and the next film is another Christmas Carol playthrough. So you thought the Flintstones' portrayal of the Christmas Carol was good? No, the Muppets' portrayal of it was spot on, basically. You had so many different strange funny things happening, as per usual with the Muppets. So you had Kermit as I think, was it Bob Cratchit? He wasn't even Scrooge. Yeah, Scrooge was a human. Scrooge was Michael Caine. You know, for the longest time, I never even realised that was Michael Caine. That's how good he did it, or how stupid I was. But it was because he was a lot younger. He was a lot younger in this. When did this film come out? This film came out in about 1992. So Michael Caine was a lot younger at that point. But it was great. So you had him being Scrooge, which is not hard to play. You just be miserable and be stupid, but he did such a good job of it. And then you have Kermit being his happy, witty, weird self. You have Miss Piggy playing Bob Cratchit's wife. It's good. And to add to all of that, you have it just gets better. You have what's his name? You have Gonzo, right? You have Gonzo and Ratty playing the narrators. They are what makes this a good film. If it wasn't for Ratty and Gonzo, it wouldn't be as good a film. So I'm glad those two were there, and they definitely gave it its stand in the market. So yeah.
God bless us, everyone.
Now, the thing with these films are, these are films I've seen either recently or films that have always stayed in my heart. Not films that I've never seen or not seen in a long time, right? So the next film is the more recent version of a much older film. The much older film, I think, is preferred by a lot of people, but I prefer this version because this is the one I've seen more. And the film I'm talking about is Miracle on 34th Street. Now, the one I'm talking about is the one that came out in 1994, and it had Richard Attenborough in it. Now, Richard Attenborough sadly passed away, I think, was it a year ago or 2 years ago? But he did some mighty roles. I mean, he was in Jurassic Park, for goodness sake. And not only that, Chaplin, I think, A Bridge Too Far, Gandhi, The Great Escape. He was in The Great Escape. He was, of course, he's David Attenborough's brother. Whoa. But mainly, he was, one of his best roles was definitely Miracle on 34th Street. In this, could you get a better person to play Santa? Well, maybe the original. The original had a really good actor behind it. But this was a miracle, basically, to have Richard Attenborough as Santa Claus in A Miracle on 34th Street. And not only that, but you have Matilda. You have Mara Wilson as Susan Walker, the little girl in it. Wow. Two fantastic actors at that time together in a film. It was great. If you don't know what Miracle on 34th Street is, it's basically a man, Santa Claus, but people don't know that he's Santa Claus. He is blending in real life, but he doesn't like how some other people are doing Santa. There's one guy that gets quite drunk in it and whatever else, but he gets hired by Mara Wilson or Susan Walker's mum to be their Santa in the store, so a store Santa. Pretty good job. So he obviously does a better job than anybody else because he's the real Santa, and people are starting to question why he's so good and things like that and whatever else. And then a Santa who was playing a previous Santa, he got into trouble with him, and this Santa had to go to court, but he was desperate to prove he was the real Santa. It makes for a good film, and I know it sounds very crazy and weird and out there. It was a bit out there, but it was a good film, and I would definitely see it again. Well, obviously I definitely see it again. I own the film, but I'll probably check out the original so I have a better idea of the comparison at some point. But for now, this one is getting its place.
He thinks you're Santa Claus. I am.
Well, I'm taking forever for this, haven't I? Well, we're finally on to number 14. Whew. Right. Now, number 14 is a film that came out, I wouldn't say recently, but it's more recent than some of the other films I've said. It's a film that I went to the cinema. I went to the cinema to see when I was a bit younger. So when did it come out? It came out in 2004. So I was in primary 4 at that point. I was about 9 years old. 14 years ago this film came out, and I was 9. That scares me a wee bit. So the film I'm talking about is The Polar Express. The Polar Express, not the Explorer Express, right? The Polar Express. So doesn't sound very normal for a Christmas film, but wow, You have one of the best actors. Now, if you do not agree that this is one of the best actors ever, I don't think we can talk anymore. I'm kidding, right? But this guy is a masterpiece. This guy has been in so many films, so many great roles, so many good films. The guy I'm talking about is Tom Hanks, and the film is obviously The Polar Express, but he plays the conductor in this, and he also plays, I think, a creepy guy on the train. But basically, in this film, there's a wee boy who is beginning to not believe in Santa Claus. We've all been at that point in life. We all know the story in that. But this boy wants to believe in Santa Claus. So he's lying in his bed and he's thinking, what if Santa's real? I want Santa to be real. And then, out of nowhere, a train arrives. Now, when you think you're beginning to not believe in Santa, the one thing you want to come and help you is a train. I'm telling you, when I saw the advert for this, I was stunned. I was like, what? A train? It got me excited. I really wanted to see it. So he gets on the train and he goes to the North Pole. But it's not as simple as that. There's a lot more that happens throughout his journey. And that's what makes this a good film. There's so much excitement to it. There's so much going on. And it has a really nice ending as well. But I can't really say much about it because I want you to check it out. It also, interestingly enough, if you watched my favourite Christmas songs, one of the songs from that, which was by Josh Groban, called Believe, is in this film. That is a really nice song, and it really makes this film stand out a bit more. So for that reason, that's why it's in this place. I know it's quite low down or quite high up.
There is the North Pole.
On to the next one. Now the next one, number 13, is usually an unlucky number, but in this case it's a lucky number because I watched this film once when it was on my Netflix, and I was like, it might be a good film, and I loved it. So the film I'm talking about is Deck the Halls, and I'm very glad I watched it. It's got Danny DeVito in it, and it's got Matthew Broderick, right? So people around this time of year, some people go insane with decorating their houses. People do their houses up beyond belief. They make them so bright that basically you can't even see the house anymore. So this film is basically based around that. So there's two neighbours. There's Steve, Matthew Broderick, and then there's the guy across the road, Danny DeVito. Or Danny, which is quite funny that he's called Danny. And Danny, or Danny DeVito, loves this time of year. He loves decorating his house to the max, and he does it. He makes his house so bright, so big, so and he keeps going. He's desperate plans to illuminate his house with enough holiday lights to make it visible from space. Yeah, that was the whole premise. He wanted his house to be visible from space. How crazy is that? I do like this film a lot, probably more than a lot of other people do, but for that reason, it's at this place.
Well, this has been fun. So let's go take the picture, huh?
There's 2 or 3 films in my list that are not really Christmas films, but they do centre around Christmas a lot, or they do have a Christmassy feel to them. One of those films is the next film. The next film is Frozen. Now, I know what you're saying. It has nothing whatsoever to do with Christmas, but if you think about it, it's got reindeer in it, it's got a snowman in it, there's a lot of snow. I know it has nothing to do with Christmas, but there's such a Christmassy theme, and it came out around Christmas that I count this as a Christmas film. I would watch this at Christmas because it's got a Christmassy theme. I mean, when did it come out? It came out on 6th of December. Can you get any more Christmassy? I mean, if you came out on the 25th, then yeah. To be honest with you, this is not my favourite Disney film. Of course not. It's not even in my top 10 Disney films. Not even my top 20. I don't like it that much. But the songs in it and the story, the characters are actually quite good. It's also one of the only Disney films that don't really centre around the enemy that much, I guess you could say. Like, although there's an enemy in it, the enemy plays such a minor role that he might as well not even be there. The enemy of this film is Elsa, if you think about it. She is the one that causes the most destruction, but because of that, Anna, her sister, if you don't know what the film is, I mean, there's only probably like 5% of people out there that don't know what Frozen is, but Anna has to save her sister, so it's all about that. And not only is it a nice film and it's got some good characters, it has, of course, some of the biggest, best, amazing songs out there. And I don't know how many of you experienced the Frozen the Let It Go phase. It was insane. The song was absolutely everywhere. Let it go, let it go, let it go. It was everywhere. I love the song more now that people are less obsessed with it, but there's also there's other good songs in it, like Love is an Open Door, or Do You Want to Build a Snowman? And there was something else. I preferred one of the other songs, but yeah, it's a good film. It's a nice film, and it was nice for Disney to do something new, because when they do something new, they always come out on top, basically, except for maybe The Princess and the Frog. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that in this episode, so on to the next film.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
And the next thing is the next film, even. Now, the next film is another one of these films that probably doesn't get as much attention as it should, and it's one of these films I probably love that nobody else loves. And yet again, it's another Vince Vaughn spin, another Vince Vaughn film. Vince Vaughn can be a very, very good, funny actor, and in this film, he definitely is. The film I'm talking about is number 11, Fred Claus. Now, not only is Vince Vaughn in it, but he's alongside another great actor, Paul Giamatti. I mean, he's just as good as Kevin James, anyways. But basically, there's Santa Claus. Of course, there's Santa Claus. It's Christmas, but there's also Fred Claus, his brother. So the film starts out with these two as young people, and I think Vince Vaughn, or Fred, is actually the older brother, so he has to put up with his younger brother. He has to nourish his younger brother, and then his younger brother eventually gets all the attention, all the good things and that, because he turns out to be Santa. I mean, if that's quite sad. So Fred has to live with this, and that makes Fred hate Christmas. It's very interesting. It's very entertaining. It took me forever to get this film on DVD, but I'm glad I eventually did. It's a good film, a nice film, and a fun film.
So who are you going to have to thank for all that? Not the big guy in the red suit, but your pal Fred.
So, on to number 10. Another one of these films that's not really a Christmas film, but it's so Christmassy that it might as well be a Christmas film. And it is Rise of the Guardians. Now, Rise of the Guardians centres around lots of different times a year, but the main time of year it kind of focuses around is Christmas, because it's got Santa, it's got Jack Frost, and it's got the ghoul guy, the darkness guy, I can't remember what his name is. Jude Law was Pitch Black, right? So Rise of the Guardians is hilarious. Not only do you have a bunny, the Easter Bunny, who's Australian for some reason. He's played by Hugh Jackman. Perfection right there. You've got Santa Claus, but he's a Santa Claus unlike any other. I think he's actually called North. Yeah, he's North, and he's played by Alec Baldwin. But that's not the premise of this film. The premise of this film is all these guardians, right? So you've got Santa, you've got Sandy, you've got the Tooth Fairy, you've got the Easter Bunny, you've got all these guardians, right? They've all got big roles to play, and then you've got Jack Frost, who feels like he's kind of left out in a sense, because he's not a guardian. So the whole film is him becoming a guardian, I think it is. He's trying to be a better person, but there's another person who's excluded. The Pitch Black, the darkness, the boogeyman, I think his name is called, yeah. He tries to recruit Jack Frost, and Jack Frost isn't having it, which is a good thing. But the whole film is wonderful in that sense. It's by DreamWorks, of course, so it's obviously going to be entertaining. I do like it a lot. I wouldn't say I like Santa a lot in this film. I feel like he's kind of different to what you'd think the usual Santa would be, fat, jolly and happy. I mean, he's muscular, scary and strange, but it has got a lot of good detail, a lot of action-packed fun, so I do enjoy it. Definitely recommend it.
If you're not a kangaroo, what are you? I'm a bunny. The Easter Bunny.
Right, running out of time basically, because I've been going for half an hour, haven't I? Probably even longer. The next film is kind of similar to that film, if you think about it, because it's got one of the characters in it, Jack Frost. I mean, it's not similar to that film in any sense, but it's got the main character's name, Jack Frost. Right, now this film was, if you think about it by today's standards, it's kind of weird, it's kind of bad, right? But when I was younger, it was one of the first Christmas films I saw, I think. It was one of the ones I used to watch constantly, used to love it, used to know it off by heart in a sense. It's got Michael Keaton in it, yeah? Who is in a band that has probably like one of the worst names for a band ever. I think it's called like Jack Frost and the something or others. And they don't really sing any good songs, but the funny, entertaining part to this is when he becomes a snowman. I'm not going to tell you why he becomes a snowman, but he becomes a snowman, and his son, Charlie, has to deal with his father being a snowman, so he has to eventually realise that it's getting warmer and his dad might melt, so he has to deal with that. That's just one of the problems. I mean, there's also the issue of he's carting around a snowman amongst his friends and that. There's loads of funny scenes in this, because if you think about it, a man as a snowman, just think of the amount of problems and entertaining things that causes. So for the time when I watched this, it was hilarious and I loved it. Watching it today, I still find it quite entertaining.
I'm home.
Now, these are the top 8 we're into. Now, these are films that I could watch a million times and still love, basically. And the next 2 films, you'll probably be definitely saying these are not Christmas films. For a fact, these films came out at Christmas, and they have Christmas music in it, I think. They even have Christmas, or I say they came out around Christmas. I'm a little bit far-fetched by that. The first one came out in February. Well, it's a bit of a late Christmas, but this was, I mean, its description even says on Christmas Eve. Can you get any more Christmassy than that? So let me get on with it then. The films I'm talking about is Die Hard, or at least the first one, right? The first one is Die Hard, and if you've never seen Die Hard, why? Why have you never seen Die Hard? It's one of the best action films ever. It's got some of the greatest actors at that time. I mean, it's got Bruce Willis, and it's got Alan Rickman. Now, Alan Rickman, if you don't know, sadly died a few years ago. His main role recently was in Harry Potter as what's his name? Can't remember. Sirius. I get the two confused. There's Sirius Black, and then there's also, that's somebody else. Right. Anyways, he played a Russian terrorist who attacked, I can't remember the name of the building. Does it tell me what the name of the building is? In the headquarters of the Japanese building. No. Right. But he attacks this building that has Bruce Willis in it, along with a lot of other people in it. And Bruce Willis has to deal with this, but he's not happy about this because he went there to have a good time, have a good Christmas time. And when he's this mad, Bruce Willis, or John McClane, comes out with some of the best and funniest lines ever. And the whole situation is just him getting more and more annoyed. And it's funny, right? motorcycling craziness. I think he was retired. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he wasn't retired, but he was from a different city. That's what it was. He was a New York City policeman in Los Angeles, or San whatever. But it's entertaining. I think most people know what Die Hard is or have seen Die Hard, and if you haven't, then I can't believe you haven't. I honestly can't believe. I mean, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, almost 100%. Come on, this is one of the greatest action films ever. They have kind of overdone it a bit. Like, they kept going and kept going. I mean, they're on their 6th film, their 5th film. But this Die Hard 1, awesome.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
I've actually kind of got my order mixed up. So Die Hard 2 was number 8 and Die Hard 1 was number 7. So number 7, if you want to count it, is Die Hard 2. Now, I might be saying like it's exactly the same premise. It's not really. I mean, there's terrorists involved. John McClane is back, but they're this time in a airport at the same time of year, same time. It's Christmas Eve or around that time. This film did not come out during Christmas. This came out in June. Wow. But it's still a Christmas film. It's still centered around Christmas. And it's, I wouldn't say it's more action-packed, but a lot more insane stunt things happen in this film. It's excellently crazy. And for that reason, it's at number 7. Well, it's actually at number 8, but yeah. And do you know what one of my favourite things about these films is? His friends in it. Like, he made a friend in the first film. He made a cop friend, and he was kind of in the second film. The third film, which is not on this list because it's not a Christmas film at all, but the third film has Samuel L. Jackson in it, and it's hilarious. I love it. I think I prefer the third film to the second film, if I'm honest. But anyways, not talking about that. The second film is great. The first film is amazing, awesome, brilliant, stunning. Yes. Now, on to number 6. This is taking forever, isn't it? Number 6. Now, number 6 recently has a more recent film coming out of it, but I prefer this version. I know that sounds crazy, but so I think the real title of this film is The Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or yeah. Now, people were probably thinking this version is terrible. Now, I can kind of understand where they're coming from. There's a lot of oddities to this film, but Jim Carrey as the Grinch, perfection. You've got this crazy actor playing a crazy role. I know that it's Jim Carrey because it's clear as day. It says Jim Carrey. But if you didn't know it was Jim Carrey, would you be able to tell it's him? No, I don't think you would, because the makeup is perfection. And it's just funny. Like, this was when humour was anything, basically. When did this come out? 2000. We were just getting into the new decade or whatever it is, and things were beginning to become strange, and this was perfection at a point. I have to say my least favourite part of this film is probably Cindy Lou Who singing. Oh, I do not like that part. I don't like their styles of hair either. It's creepy. I'm not planning to see the new version of it because this version is my version. Like, this is the version that's just awesome. I love it for what it is. If they didn't have the Who's in it, then it'd probably be pointless. But the Who's are the only thing that bring this down for me. I don't like the Who's in it. The Grinch, though, wonderful. Love it. Awesome. Hilarious. I still laugh at it today, and I still enjoy it today. Whoa.
I'm a psycho.
Number 5. Now, number 5 is part of 2 films. Or it's actually a lot. There's a lot more of these films, but honestly, do not watch anything past the second film because they just go downhill so fast. But what the film I'm talking about is Home Alone 2: Lost in New York. Now, the first film I will get onto at some point maybe, but the second film has Kevin returning in his role. It's Macaulay Culkin returning as Kevin McAllister in this film. So he starts out in his family house, which he was left alone in last Christmas, and they all make sure so hard to make sure that he gets on the same plane, only he doesn't, and somehow he ends up in New York, whereas his family have gone to Miami. Whilst he's in New York, he comes across some familiar faces, and these familiar faces caused him some trouble last Christmas, but that only makes it so much more fun. It's crazy, funny, hilarious. I think the two bad guys plus Kevin are what makes this film watchable and funny. Had it been anybody else, Home Alone 3, Home Alone 4, Home Alone 5, had it been anybody else, I wouldn't have liked it as much. That is why the sequels after this film are not as good. But this still is a good sequel to the first film. It's still as funny as the first. I love it, and I'm glad I watched it over and over and over again. On to number 4. So maybe you've guessed what the top 4 are by now, but number 4 is another classic. It's another Christmas film that everybody sees every year. Basically, they love it to death. People go on about it. They're obsessed with it. They can quote the things about it. I am no exception. I wouldn't say I love this as much as other people, but I still find it as funny as whatever. I mean, who doesn't get on board when Will Ferrell comes out and says, Santa, I know him. So the film I'm talking about is Elf. So if you thought Will Ferrell was funny, then this film is a complete different ray. Not only is he funny, but he plays an elf, and an elf that believes he's an elf. But he's a human who's an elf even. He's a human who thinks he's an elf, and he goes into the real world thinking he's an elf. There's nothing more to it than that. He's crazy. He believes he's an elf. So he goes to New York to find his real parents, as he was left at the north. He was picked up. I don't know. Whatever. He was picked up in an orphanage, or he went into he went into Santa's sack in the orphanage and ended up in the North Pole. There, basics, right? But this, he goes to the New York as the elf, and just so much funny craziness happens. I'm not going to say anything about it, but Will Ferrell, just like Jim Carrey, is an amazing actor who can play so many different roles, and Elf is one of his finest moments. I think even today he would probably say it's one of his best film roles. People today still go on about this film. It's as if it was released this year even. I mean, when people hear Christmas is coming, Elf is what they instantly think of most of the time. So I like it a lot. And on to the next thing then.
Santa's coming to town!
Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him.
Oh, 3 more films. Now, the next film only came out how many years ago? So this is number 3. Now, the next film came out 2011. Wow, that's a lot longer than I thought it was. I thought it honestly came out in like 2014. Right. Well, the film I'm talking about is Arthur Christmas. Now, this is animation at its finest, basically. They do so much with it. They've got great actors behind the voices. I mean, you've got everyone from Bill Nighy, Hugh Laurie, Jim Broadbent. Wow. Wow. Some of the greatest British actors. And you've got James McAvoy as Arthur as well. Fantastic. Basically, in this film, this centres around Arthur Christmas, who is the son of Santa Claus. He's not his only son, though, because there's also the older brother. I can't remember. There's also Steve, but you have Steve wanting to be Santa. You've got Santa still being Santa, and then you've got Arthur Christmas, who's just the youngest one. And this film basically centers around a little girl not getting her gift, but Arthur is determined to get her gift. So he spends basically the whole of Christmas Eve trying to get her this gift, and he does it with Grand Santa, who doesn't believe in the recent technology stuff. So he ends up getting into a lot of trouble. It's really funny. I love this film. I think it's one of the best Christmas films ever made. Hence the reason it's at number 3. It's 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's great. It's fantastic. The more I think about it, the more I want this film to have a sequel. But then again, some things just do not need a sequel. But this film, I find it hard to find something wrong with this film. If I had to say any criticism about this film, it would be that I'm not watching it right now. It's that good a film. There's no criticism. It's wonderful. I definitely want to watch this film, like, right now.
Santa? Gloria, Hosanna in excelsis.
So anyways, on to the last two then. Number 2. Now, number 2 is a film I've probably not seen that much, but I've probably seen it a lot in the past 3 years. I've probably watched it to death in the last 3 years, actually. And I recently bought it as well. I love this film. So it's another fantastic actor in a fantastic role. The actor I'm talking about is Bill Murray. And the film I'm talking about is Scrooged. So this centres around Bill Murray, who is the head of a TV company, I think it is. So Frank Cross, who is Bill Murray, he's a successful television executive who's cold, so he is basically the living Scrooge, and he doesn't like Christmas. He just doesn't like anything, basically. So that in itself is funny. Bill Murray as Scrooge, pretty funny. But then, of course, he's putting on a live version of the Christmas Carol, I think it is. But in real life, he's also suffering a Christmas Carol. So he's got these ghosts coming after him and all that. It's wonderful. I can't wait to watch this film again. It's another one of Bill Murray's best roles, I think it is, or one of his best roles. Yeah, I love it. I definitely love it, and I definitely want to see more of it.
This is terrific!
If you've been listening to my list or getting through this list, you might realise there's one film missing, and you'll be like, why has this not come in yet? Well, that film is here. So at number 5, I mentioned that Home Alone 2 was my number 5. Number 1, Home Alone 1. Home Alone. Now, when I was younger, I think, like a lot of other people, this was the Christmas film I watched every Christmas. I loved it to death. Just the thought of watching Home Alone at Christmas is amazing. I mean, just that tune as well. It's great. It's just kind of a sad that the John Hughes, the guy that made it, he passed away a few years ago. He made a few sequels to this film, but they all went downhill. They really did. Apart from Home Alone 2. Home Alone 2 was passable, but Home Alone was amazing. It had the best comedy at the time. It had so much crazy funniness going on. I mean, I think if you thought about it, you could probably all think of your favourite scene from Home Alone. If I had to say any, I think maybe my favourite scene is either when the spider is put on either of the burglars, or when Harry Lime, played by John Pesci, when his hand is burned, that, and he's going like, and he jumps in the snow. It's great. Anyways, I've talked enough Christmas films. Each and every one of these Christmas films, did I say that this was played by John Hughes? I know John Hughes had something to do with this. No, the director of this film is Chris Columbus. Sorry about that. I know John Hughes had something to do with this, but he's the filmmaker. Alright. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I know it was probably very long. And it was a crazy, crazy, crazy ride. So many good Christmas films. I'm definitely going to be watching at least all of them this year. But anyways, until next time or whatever I do, bye.
Santa's really neat sometimes. I'm only kidding. Santa's a great man. He just gets a little angry when things don't go to plan. Anyways, did you like that? I think my favorite movie out of everything has to be Home Alone, because Kevin can be really smart in that field, just like me. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Connor's Crazy Countdown, or Connor's Christmas Countdown. Hey, how do you like that? I'm pretty sure Connor already made that joke and it wasn't funny the first time. Anyways, join us, or join Connor, in the next episode of whatever he does. Until then, bye! I'm sorry, Santa, okay? I'm sorry!
Oh, no, don't worry. We'll make everything all right.